Okay, I'm working here with a 20 gauge over and under shotgun. I'm going to add some weight to the gun to reduce the recoil and improve the handling. Right now the gun is very lightweight. This is the Yildiz model SPZ SME 20 gauge, and I've already got the recoil pad removed, and so you can see there's a very generous hole there where we can add some weight. And you can look way down in there, you can see there's a nut and a washer pretty far down in there. I'll tell you exactly how far that is in a little bit. But anyway, for some reason, these holes all seem to be 3/4 inch or a little more diameter, like a 19 millimeter maybe. And I just happen to have a nice piece of stainless steel tubing. It's a pretty heavy wall, and it's exactly 3/4 inch OD. And this is what I've been using to add weights to my shotguns. And so I'm going to drop that in there and mark it and cut it off. And I'll get quite a bit of opportunity here to add weight. But first I'm going to put a silicone rubber bumper on the front here, because I don't want it contacting metal to metal on the screw or the washer. And so I'm going to use this hard silicone cork here and insert that in there as far as I can get it. And I found that twisting helps to get it to seat. And so this is actually what's going to be riding on the head of that screw now. So it'll kind of help absorb a little of the shock. It won't be a metal on metal, which would hammer it up. And so now I'm going to mark this on this end. And I see my pad here has a recess. And there's also a fairly deep recess here. It must be at least 10 millimeters in. I don't know why they did that, but I'm going to mark it, and then I'm also going to add some kind of cork or pad or something on it so that when it's hitting here, it doesn't mushroom that out. I'm going to have to, because that's kind of a soft, you can see how this is soft in the middle and hard around the edge there. So let's get started. I'm going to insert that in there and mark it. I'm going to mark it right there. I'm going to take it in there and cut it on a hacksaw. So while I was in there hacksawing this tube, I had an idea that of how I could use this recess here. I was actually worried about how this weight would come into contact with this soft pad, and it's so easily deflected. I really don't think it would work very well. But I came up with a different idea. I'm going to still use the silicone stopper there to contact the screw in there. But I'm going to cut it flush with the top of this. And once I seal that with some epoxy and put some lead in there, I can get a piece of steel or wood and put 2 screws through it to hold that firmly down onto the stock. And that will transfer the force a lot better than what I was originally considering, having that weight go right against the pad here. So that's my new plan. Maybe that's why they put that in there. I haven't seen that before in a gun, but I think that'll be a much better situation. So now I'm going to find a piece of, probably going to use a piece of steel, maybe aluminum, wood, my last resort. I'm going to look around, see what I got laying around. So I found a brass bar that I've got here that actually fits quite nicely in the slot. I'm going to go ahead and round these edges on a file and do some work on that and get that to be a bar that drops down in there to retain my weight. It'll take me a while to get that going, but stay tuned. So I'm going to use a sanding disc to put a radius on this edge of the brass bar. nice. The nice thing about working with brass, it's very easy to machine. A little too easy sometimes. But luckily, you know, I don't need a precision fit. Just looking for close proximity. So I can test the fit on this. And I'm pretty happy with that. So now I can mark the other end. Something like that. I'm gonna go cut that with a hacksaw. All right, so I got this brass piece shaped to fit inside this slot here. And I've got it drilled for some screws. I'm gonna use these screws here to go inside there. And so what I want to do now is drill it. You can see how it's cast for a right-handed person, how the stock is offset a little bit. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and drill that. So I've got I'm using the same drill bit that I used to drill these holes, so it'll accurately position it. And I chose a bit that's basically about the core of the screw. And so I'm going to drop that in place there. And I'm going to drop another bit in that hole to hold it still while I drill the other one. You can smell that walnut. Pretty nice smell. I like working with walnut wood. That's definitely walnut. So now I'm going to take the slightly smaller screw here. A bit here. Go ahead and go down in there some more. And so if you recall, the idea was I'll have this weight in there. Then I'm going to take this brass bar, screw it in across the top, and it'll hold the weight firmly against the bolt in the receiver, and it won't rattle it around, and it'll transfer all the energy directly to the weight instead of letting it slide back. So now I've got to re-drill these holes larger for this screw now. And we'll do that now. So I've gone and re-drilled the holes so the screws drop in. Now I just have to relieve the surface here so the screws can be flush mounted. So I'm in here on the drill press now, and I'm getting ready to cut the recess for these flush mounted screws. See how that fits. That's pretty good. I might go just a touch more on that. Not sure if you're able to see from that angle. I'll try to switch it. But here's a different angle. I'm going to go ahead and touch this one up just a little bit. Now I can get the screw heads to sit down in there. They're almost flush, not quite, but that's fine. There's a recess even furthermore. So this is good enough for what I'm doing now. We'll move back outside and finish putting it together. So you can see how the stock is mounted offset. It's got a cast in it for a right-hand shooter. And you can, while I got it open here, I'm going to measure it and see what the cast might be. I've zeroed it for the center line, and I'm going to move it over to approximate the center of the bore there. So it's got a cast of about 0.3 inches to the right. And so if it was for a left-hand shooter, it would be cast off in the other direction. And so now I'm going to drive the screws in for the first time. I'm going to use a little wax as a lubricant on the threads. And it's important to find a screwdriver that fits the head exactly correct, which I've got one here that's I'm happy with. So I'm going to go ahead and run the screw in here. So the first time I'm just running the screw in to establish some threads. And then the second time I'll put it in when I'm holding the weight in. So I just want to go slow and make sure it feels like it's not going to split the wood. It feels good to me. It's not too terribly tight. I'm going to let that one sit there a second, and I'm going to lubricate the threads of this other one. Get it started on this side. And that's an interesting way to measure the cast, I think. I haven't noticed that on my other shotgun, but it's pretty obvious on this one. So I've got the screws down in about as far as they would need to go. I'm going to back them back out. Yep. Don't normally use slotted screws anymore, but I just happen to have these, and they were about the size I was wanting, something with some good thread engagement and a beefy screw. I doubt I'll be pulling these in and out, so the slotted ones are fine, I guess. So the next step, I'm going to go ahead and add the lead to my pipe now that I know I've got a way to retain it. So you recall I'm going to fill this full of lead, sit that down in there. And I marked that with a B, that's the bottom. That'll go in and hold that. And I'll probably put some sort of buffer between this brass and this steel. Maybe a piece of leather or something. But right now I'm going to go ahead and fill this up with lead and get some weight into it. It probably weighs about 8 or 9 ounces right now. I'm going to weigh it when I get done, let you know what that is. I'm going to go ahead and set the bar in a vise, just hold it vertically, and use some 5-minute epoxy here. I'm going to do the same thing I've done in the past, just put a little epoxy in the bottom and pour in some lead, and then seal it with epoxy at the top. And I've got a little piece of leather I'm going to glue across that as well. Now, hopefully that's going to go all the way to the bottom. It's a long way, so I might want to put something down in there to encourage it. Long way down there. Now I've got some lead shot here. I'm just going to start pouring that in. You can just feel the bottom of it there. So I've got the lead up to almost the top. I'm going to go ahead and mix up another little batch of this epoxy. Just seal it in at the top. So the lead shot in the tube, I'm guessing it might rattle around in there a little bit over the years, but maybe that'll help absorb the recoil, I don't know. I could do an experiment where I take a piece of this pipe and pour lead into it, or put a steel core in it or something, but might do that sometime. I think what I'm going to do is just allow this epoxy to well up across the top here, and that'll become the interface to the brass. So I'll let that cure. It takes 24 hours, and then I can try that out. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the video. So I'm weighing the shotgun weight for the Yildiz 20 gauge over and under. And it looks like it's coming in around 380 grams, maybe about 13 and a half ounces. Yeah, I'm going to wrap up the installation of the weight of the Yildiz 20 gauge over and under. I'll show you what I've got here. I've got the weight, it's the epoxy has cured there. Got a silicone bumper here. This is about a pound of weight I'm adding into the rear stock. The gun's kind of a lightweight, so it needs some extra weight to absorb recoil. So you can hear that goes in and bottoms out against the screw there. I've made this piece of brass here that's going to retain the weight, and there's two large screws that sink it into the stock. And the screws are recessed there in this brass piece. And the weight is slightly crowned. You can see this brass piece sort of rocks back and forth. So all that's left to do is run those two screws home and then add the butt plate. The screws have already been installed once. The threads are somewhat established. Got a very tight fitting slotted screwdriver here. It's going to take these home. And I'm going to go try this out in the morning. I'll do some videos of test fire. I'm going to take it to the range and pattern it and run it out on the clays course and see how it does. I'm going to be comparing it to 20 gauge semi-automatics that I have, and I'm hoping it'll be in line with those as far as recoil and accuracy. It'll definitely, I'm definitely expecting it to exceed the reliability, as I think a over and under is going to be much more reliable than a semi-automatic in the long run. And that's my expectation, and I'm hoping it won't let me down. So I've got the weight. The screws are snugged in very well. I'll turn that around so you can see that. So there's a brass piece that's holding the weight in. Boy, it feels really weighty on the back, and that's exactly what I like. I like the weight in the back. So now I'm going to add the recoil pad here. And that's a number 2 Phillips. Just run those screws back in place there. There's a little more involved than normally what I do with weighting the shotgun. But in this case, I believe that it's going to pay off. I really like how they recessed the access here and gave me a way to lock it into the stock of the gun and not have it rely on the weight striking the recoil pad. And I really do like that about it, and I think it's going to work out very well. I think it's going to be a solid solution. And wow, that really feels, I can really feel all that weight is right here behind my hand. You know, that's a whole pound back there. This was about a 6-pound gun, now it's about a 7-pound. And looking forward to trying that. So thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the video. And good luck with your project. I'll post some videos tomorrow of test firing the gun on the range, and hopefully it'll exceed my expectations.